Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? You almost caught me rearranging my things. So hopefully everything is working well. I see comments. Oh my God, Lunatic Libertarian, you saw an ad on this Libertarian page? Ew. A Republican ad. What was it for? Yeah, I'll make money off the Republicans. Why the hell not? But wow. Okay. Interesting. I don't know why in the world they would do that, but if that's what they want to spend their money on. You want to know what's funny is because I watch a lot of different stuff. Some of it I agree with it, some of it I don't, but I watch a lot of different stuff. And it's funny, if you watch any anti-MLM videos, there are MLM ads on it. If you watch anti-Scientology videos, there are freaking Scientology ads on it. I don't know how. Maybe they think they're going to get converts, the Republicans, the MLM, whatever, I'm just saying in general. So we're gonna get started. We are going to. Hey there, Jason. How are you doing? We are going to get started. But before we do, y'all got to keep me on track. You got to make me a good YouTuber, which is, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Please clap and like and do all that other kinds of things. But you had me at FBI. I need a sound clip for that, don't I? I need to make Pat Ford needs to be a sound clip. He needs to join the ranks of
objection, speculative.
And oh, that one didn't work. Why isn't unauthorized recording not working? Nick is in my machine. Do I have lipstick on my teeth? I do, don't I? I'm always so paranoid about that. No, I don't. I'm always so paranoid about that. But I need to get unauthorized recording working. What about the other ones?
Super dilatory, by the way.
Okay, that works. What's this one?
You salty bitch.
You...
Explain yourself.
But why isn't unauthorized recording working? Oh my God, Nick got the NSA to zap my little stream deck. All right, along the bottom, well, you're going to see something else interesting along the bottom that I'm just going to leave alone. And hello, JJ. But along the bottom, you see my Patreon. Yeah, in this time of, it's not good finances for a lot of people. Most YouTubers are feeling the pinch. So if you happen to be one of the more blessed people and you enjoy my content, please do consider becoming a patron. There is bonus content there that's of the more book review cerebral type, not quite as ranty. not quite as ranty as what I do here. But speaking of paying the bills, no, lunatic libertarian, I am not still unemployed, which is why my streams tend to be a little bit later, but I am super, super behind. And to be honest with you, cubicle life is not for me, you know? Like, it's, who knows how long it will last. I work with the nicest people in the world, but I'm finding it very difficult to become accustomed to it. But my ultimate goal is to do liberty stuff. I do think that's where my talent is, so I'm still working on building, you know, my YouTube and other liberty activism income. So if you do like this type of work, if you get value out of my streams, I do hope that you will consider becoming a patron at patreon.com. Of course, as always, all super chats matter. Now it's Twitch affiliate, so if you have a Amazon Prime subscription and you might not know that you get to gift a monthly subscription, which throws a few bucks to the Twitch streamer of your choice who's an affiliate. If you haven't gifted yours to somebody yet, I'd really appreciate it. So if you go to twitch.tv/Pink Flame of Liberty, you can, gift me, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's part of your Prime membership. And I don't know about you guys, but like, I live for Amazon Prime. So I'm sure a lot of you didn't even know that. Please gift me your monthly Amazon Prime thing. Again, it's something you get with your membership. It doesn't cost you a thing. And for another sponsor, and then we're going to get right into, this is Tale of Two Brothers by my friend Sean Dempsey in New Hampshire. It's a great, great children's book that will teach freedom principles without being like gross, like teaching kids politics. You know, that sort of thing. But great. It's at tale2brothers.amazon. At Amazon, Tale of Two Brothers, or tale2brothers.com. Okay. I need more beer. I'm obviously, since I'm all over the place, I'm way too sober. Alrighty. So what are we talking about today, and what prompted it? I'm going to be doing a lot more topical streams like this, because hopefully this is going to be a very non-controversial LNC, as Jay Sorensen is laughing because of all the stuff we've been going through. But it's going to be non-controversial internally. We might have some external stuff, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be relatively peaceful. It has been so far. They've been great, great people to work with. Angela is a fantastic chair. So I'm going to be doing more of this topical, philosophical stuff. So what prompted this is, as usual, there was some kind of Twitter mob that was mobbing Dave Smith over something or other. I stay out of those sorts of things, but I saw the same theme come up that comes up constantly. And what they were getting on him for is that he allegedly won't debate people who disagree with him, which is like ridiculous. He's debated Nick Sarwark. He debated Archie, though that was just brutal. Yeah, that was very uncomfortable to watch. But of course people go, yeah, but you haven't debated X, or yeah, it's always like that. But the criticism I often hear, and here is the criticism that I even personally have, but people go, and you won't take criticism from anybody, and you won't engage with anyone. Well, you want to know what? Go look on my channel and just look up the word Dave Smith for videos on my channel, and you'll see that I've had multiple response videos to Dave Smith, but they've been very respectful, and as I've usually called them, they've been very ironic. So Dave will respond to you. Just don't be a dick about it. Like, it's not that hard. But the theme that kept coming up, and the criticism I've had of Dave in the past, but I haven't name called him about it, but what people were name calling him on Twitter, as they were like saying, yeah, but you're not open borders now, you filthy bordertarian. And that's the term that comes out, bordertarian. And 5 seconds reflection. 5 seconds reflection should let you know what a vacuous attempted insult that is. And why did I decide to tackle this? A, because that's a subject I've challenged Dave Smith on. I do not agree with his position on immigration. But him and I, or he and I know I messed up whom, him, whatever. We've had ironic discussions about it, because I do realize that this is a topic that people of good faith can disagree on. But he's not a bordertarian. That insult is just, it's a mile wide and an inch deep. And I decided to tackle it, A, because I've been a critic of Dave Smith on this, and B, I am an open borders now anarchist. So oftentimes I find that people will not hear a criticism unless it comes from somebody they already agree with. So I am criticizing right now my own people, my own tribe, fellow open border anarchists, or even open border less than anarchists. Calling people like Dave Smith a bordertarian is dumb. You might have a lot of legitimate criticisms. I'm sure there's a lot of legitimate criticisms of me. But if you want people to take you seriously, don't use vacuous insults. And in this subject, I actually feel so strongly about that I wrote notes. Look at this. And I never frickin' write notes. You know me, I'm the ramble queen. And I numbered them too, because I knew I would do that. So I'll keep my notes in order. Okay, so here we go. I gotta look at my notes. I gotta see where I'm going with this. All right, there's one thing that we libertarians love. We love. And that is calling other libertarians names. That is like the number one pastime that we have, is to call other libertarians names. And there is sometimes, no doubt, where it's well-deserved. Because we are human beings, like all other human beings, and humans are going to human, and sometimes, you know what, other human beings earn names. But we are the champs of name-calling, and of unwarranted name-calling to each other, okay? And I have become convinced the reason why we can be so verbally vicious to each other is because we don't believe in physical violence. So we get out, and I've said this before, but I think the reason why libertarian social media is so toxic, it's because we really literally have to find an alternative means to walking up and actually bitch slapping somebody. We can't do that because non-aggression principle. So we've got this pent-up aggression, and I can tell you a good way to get out your pent-up aggression rather than being a douche on social media, but we sublimate it by being a jerk on social media. So, yeah. Let me tell you, and yes, Lunatic Libertarian brought up, yeah, that's consensual violence. And I was actually going to bring up something similar to that. Libertarians need to get involved in more consensual violence. During the peak of what was going on with me, where like I had a lot of pent-up frustrations, and I'm a very passionate person. You want to know what really helped me? We went and did paintball. And getting out there in the paintball arena, which I turned out to be surprisingly very good at, either that or I was just very angry, and just shooting the hell out of some other libertarians consensually, boy, did that do a world of good. Mike Seebeck, he was on my team though. Mike Seebeck and I shot the hell out of that other team. Mike and I were good, but I don't think Ross has ever forgiven me for what I did. So there was this big blow up, like, it was almost looked like a bouncy house, but it wasn't, but it was like that kind of shape thing that was in the arena. And Ross thought he was slick. So Ross was on the other side of this, and he's peeking around, and he doesn't realize there's like this much between the bouncy thing and the wall, and I'm not a big girl. So, well, I stick out a little bit, but I'm not a big girl. So I slide over there, and I could just see the backside of him where he's peeking around, and bam, man, I got him good. I don't think he's ever forgiven me for that. But let me tell you, that felt good. So libertarians, find some consensual violence so you'll be nicer to each other on social media. Anyway, so let me see here. Yeah, so I got that. Oh boy. So what we do in order to justify, oh, this is a perfect spot for the sound clip.
You salty bitch. Explain yourself.
Right, you salty bitches. Explain yourself. So what we do to justify this cattiness, we are they say libertarians is herding cats. Okay, we're very catty. The men too. We're all very, very catty. And let me give you a classic example where some of you guys will be, you might get a little, this might hit a little close to home. And again, I'm speaking to other anarchists. And one way where we justify this cattiness is just by being painfully pedantic. And the classic example of that is when anarchists call menarchists status. If you want to be very, very pedantic, okay, technically you're correct. They do believe in a tiny state, so you're technically correct in your terminology. But are you functionally correct? Is that really the right word to use for menarchists? No, it's not. It's dumb. It's literally dumb. When fellow anarchists, I'm talking to you guys, call actual, like literal menarchists, not people who think they're menarchists plus all this other crap. I'm talking about actual menarchists. When you call them status, you diminish the real statism that's in the world. Because the difference between an actual menarchist and an anarchist is like so tiny that if you're going to call them status, you just basically have drawn the libertarian circle so tightly you probably don't even fit in it. I wish for the blessed day when there's only our two views left, okay? Minarchism and anarchism. Then you could call them status and be correct. But right now, if you do that, it doesn't work, and you're just being a jerk. And that rhymed. It doesn't work, and you're just being a jerk. But that's the classic example of the way we'll bend over backwards just so that we can call another libertarian a name in a very self-superior way. So anarchists, stop that. Minarchists are not status. I know I make my jokes, but I mean them in good fun. Minarchism just the tip. Minarchist frenemies of the state. It's a joke. Minarchists are my brothers and sisters, and they're not status, okay? Get over it. You know, no bueno. No bueno. So, there goes the first page. All right. To lead onto then why it's super, super dumb to call someone like Dave Smith a bordertarian, we need to back up a little bit here. Most libertarians, anarchist or not, but even anarchist libertarians are not no particular orderists. Now, I know that's a term that might not be familiar to everyone. It's pretty familiar to my regular audience because I'm a no particular orderist, but it's not the most common of terms. I think it was coined by Rothbard. I'm not exactly sure. But most people who are the subject of this critique are not no particular orderists like I am. Some are, but most aren't. So what is a no particular orderist? And I'm going to read this because this is directly from the Radical Caucus. One of the distinguishing features of the Radical Caucus is they hold hardcore to no particular orderism, as I do. So, quoting the LPRC, no particular order. The removal of one harmful government policy should never be held hostage for the removal of another. For example, saying that borders may be opened, but only after welfare is eliminated is unacceptable. The proper position is to push for both changes. Should we succeed in achieving open borders only to find welfare burdens are increased, this should be used as an additional argument to abolish welfare. That's the classic example of no particular orderism, and that's what I hold, and that's where Dave and I disagree. But that's where most libertarians disagree with me. Most libertarians, unfortunately, in my view, and mistakenly, are not no particular orderists. And all I can say to you guys is, libertarians of all people should know that you cannot centrally plan liberty. You know central planning doesn't work, but all of a sudden you throw that out the window when it comes to liberty. You think you can centrally plan it. You think, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. It doesn't work that way. The radical approach, and I mean radical as in Radical Caucus, I mean radical as in amongst libertarians, since we're all radicals when it comes to the rest of the normie world. But the capital R radical approach is, what can we achieve right now? And that doesn't mean what's easiest, because sometimes what you can achieve right now is just because some kind of event happened that put that thing on the public tongue. Like right now, everyone's hating the FBI. Whereas last year, a message of abolish the FBI might not have been popular, but it's popular right now. And let's just say that isn't your issue. Your issue might be homeschooling. But you want to know what? Right now, people are talking about abolishing the FBI. And even though in your particular preferred order of liberty, you would put that further down, if that's what's doable now, do it now. That's the capital R radical approach. So we don't believe in saying, well, you know, we could try to do X now, but we need to do Y first. If Y's not on the table, but X is, go for X. Forget about Y for right now. Otherwise, you are doing what my friend Tom Knapp calls Stockholm libertarianism, where both sides have hostages and neither side is willing to give up their hostage unless the other side does and the other side isn't. It's an easy, convenient way to avoid responsibility while coming up with a righteous excuse. But anyway, that should explain no particular orderism, and most libertarians aren't. I am. I am a capital R radical when it comes to my libertarian methodology. So, that last thing, where I gave the example of borders, is directly related to the thing we're talking about. So put a pin in that, because we're going to come back to that in a moment. I need to drink some beer, though, for a minute. And this is orange. Somebody mentioned it was orange. It's grapefruit beer. So, and somebody noticed my little running. Okay, somebody asked with that. I was waiting for someone to notice that little green thing in the corner. I just love it. I used to be the owner. I've had a lot of lives. I used to be the owner of one of the, at the time, largest theology debate forums on the internet. It's still going on. I don't own it anymore. I gave it away to some of my friends a long time ago, right when I pretty much moved to Castle Rock. And this was one of our custom gifts. I'm gonna make it really big. It's not a slug. You got to see the face on this thing. Now it's gonna get very pixelated because it's supposed to be small, but take a look at the face on that thing. I love it. That's what I think every time I read Andy Craig. This is what's going through my mind every time I read Andy Craig. Oh, and the name of this file is Running Thing. But anyway, he's my buddy, and he's going to stay right there. I love him. When I found him again on my computer, I was like, oh, that brings back memories. Oh, I need another drink of beer. And remember, people, all super chats matter. And so do, but Twitch, I got to figure out yet, because I don't see Twitch. I got to work on settings. I still don't see Twitch bits on this. I'm using Ecamm. I'm going to need to post in the user forum, like, how to solve this problem. Okay, so going back to the fact of what no particular orderism is, that I'm a no particular orderist, but most libertarians aren't. Dave Smith certainly is not. And he's in the majority. Most libertarians aren't. And most libertarians who will turn around on Twitter and call Dave Smith a bordertarian also aren't no particular orderists. They just aren't with this particular issue. But in general, they're not no particular orderists. Which means that most of Dave Smith's critics also have a commitment to varying degrees of their preference to a particular order that they would like to see harmful state actions abolished, or the order in which they would like to dismantle the state up to the point that they think the state shouldn't exist, because this would apply to minarchists as well. For instance, and actually Dave Smith said this as well, I think, but a lot of people said this. It says, for instance, I've heard plenty of libertarians that say things like abolishing the Civil Rights Act should be really, really low on our list of priorities. I can tell you, I don't have a list of priorities. My priority is what can we do right now. It doesn't have to be my pet issue. Because there certainly are issues that I care a lot about. But if they aren't on the table, oh, well, they're not on the table right now. Maybe they will be on the table in the future. So if abolishing the Civil Rights Act ends up being on the table, I don't care how shocking that might seem to some people. If it's doable now, we do it. But most libertarians would say we really shouldn't even be focusing on that at all, that it should be really low on the list of priorities. Or some people will say that the welfare state really can't be reduced until tax burdens are reduced so that people have more disposable income in order to give to poor people. Otherwise, grandma's gonna die on the streets. So even though they are in favor of abolishing the welfare state, they don't think it can be done before something else is done. Be that reducing tax burdens, be that reducing restrictions on private charity so that they could properly service the poor and the needy. But in other words, they have an order in which they think these things have to happen, okay? Now, those sorts of things probably are true of a lot of people who will call a non-open borders now anarchist a bordertarian, yet they have their own preferred order of things. It just might not be about immigration, but I bet you a lot of the people I'm talking about, I just described them when we talked about things like the Civil Rights Act or when we talked about things like abolishing the welfare state. So they do have a preferred order. But would it be fair for me to call somebody who had a preferred order on abolishing the welfare state and said, no, we can't do that first. We have to reduce tax burdens. We have to reduce restrictions on private charities first. Would it be fair for me to call them welfare statarians? No, it wouldn't. Or what about the people who say the Civil Rights Act, that thing, that should be really low on our list of priorities. We need to do other things first. Would it be accurate or fair or charitable at all for me to call them private business coercion advocates? No, it wouldn't be. Because just because they have a preference and order doesn't mean that they're advocating for the things that they placed lower in their priorities. It just means they care. They, like all human beings, they care about some things more than others, but that doesn't mean that they advocate the things that they place lower. So just as it would not be fair for me to call somebody who thinks other things have to happen before we could abolish the welfare state, welfare statarians, it is not fair to call somebody who says, I'm all for open borders, but we can't have that with the welfare state. We have to get rid of the welfare state. And the exact same way, it is not fair to call them bordertarians because they are not ultimately in support of keeping the borders closed. It's a pragmatic argument that they're making that I disagree with, but it's a pragmatic argument that you need to represent fairly. People who say you cannot open the borders until the welfare state is greatly reduced or eliminated are not advocating for borders. They are just advocating for a certain order. They're just not no particular orderists. And the chances are most of the critics that are slinging that name aren't no particular orderists either. So it's a hypocrisy that they just might not have realized applies equally to them. And what's even funnier is, that was the next page, but I had something here. If you want to call somebody an advocate for something, ask them if it would exist in their ideal libertopia. And if in their ideal libertopia, if they're an anarchist, there's not going to be a state to begin with, and borders are only private property. And of course, any anarchist, at least libertarian anarchist, if worth their salt, is going to say, on your private property, you let in who you want. So obviously, when we're dealing with borders, there's still a state. So if you ask, when we get down to the minimal state, do you still think that there should be these immigration restrictions? And if they say yes, then call them a bordertarian. But if they say no, the only reason I'm not for it now is because the welfare state, you just cannot open your borders up because then you'll just bankrupt the country. I already dealt with that argument. I don't agree with it. But that's their argument, and I believe in representing their argument fairly. I am going to make one comment to Lunatic Libertarian, and I just hope you take this to heart. You go anarchy without skills. Going to someone's live stream and continually insulting them, that might be called without skills as well. Just take that to heart for a second, because I don't really care. You notice I'm not silencing you, but I would say you are not demonstrating very good social skills with the way you're acting in the stream. Just my 2 cents. Take it for what you will. You can keep going because it drives my metrics. Yeah, it is, because I do have skills. Sorry you don't think so. You have every right to that. But I'm just saying, the way you're treating other libertarians in this stream isn't very skillful. But you have every right to do it. I'm just asking you to do a little self-examination. You can do it, or you can't. Insulting my body also isn't very skillful. You can do it. I'm not going to silence you. My rules and my stream are, unless you really, really get abusive to people and dox them or threaten them, I don't silence people. It drives the metrics. I'm not going to engage with insults mostly, but I'm just saying you might want to start doing a little self-critique before you're aiming and shooting at everybody else. Take it for what it's worth. Do what you want. You're a libertarian. I ain't going to tell you what to do. So, in the case of quote-unquote bordertarians, this principle is even clearer. They generally aren't even claiming a preference of importance, like people might be who are saying, eliminating the Civil Rights Act, that should be really low. They actually aren't making a pragmatic argument about the impossibility of doing it. They are actually making a moral, ethical value judgment about the relative worth of things. The people who argue that the borders cannot be opened until the welfare state is eliminated aren't even making a value judgment. They are making strictly a pragmatic, you can't do it until then argument. So they're not even claiming that eliminating the welfare state is more important than opening the borders. They're just saying it's impossible to open the borders until you eliminate the welfare state. So if you're going to judge on relatively fairness, it'd be more fair to call these other non-particular orderists that are going after people who have this immigration view all kinds of names before it would be to go after people with this particular immigration view. Because they're saying they're not again making an ethical value judgment between these things. It's merely a statement of impossibility. Now, I don't agree with them. I think the only way we will get rid of the welfare state is to collapse it. But that's just a difference of strategic opinion we have. That doesn't mean that I care more or am more pure or whatever word you want to use about borders, even though if we disagree just on strategy or pragmatics. Because that's all we disagree on. Because if you were to ask most anti-open border now anarchists, they would agree with you, all things being equal, in Libertopia or in Ancapistan or whatever you want to make it. So I'm just asking you, when you're calling these names, are you doing it just to win a cheap debating point? Or are you really validly calling them something that they actually are? Because if you're not, you're like the boy that cried wolf. And notice, I am not saying that it's never valid to call somebody a name. God forbid people would know that I don't believe that. I sling plenty of names myself, but I do try to be accurate. I'm not always. I've given plenty of apologies. I've done plenty of mea culpas when I've been wrong. I do try to be accurate in it though, because when you just willy-nilly shotgun names that aren't necessarily accurate, People are not going to believe you even when you are accurate. You need to build up a reputation of trust. And calling an anarchist who just happens to think that it's impossible to have both open borders and a welfare state, a bordertarian, that's not charitable. It's not correct. It is the utmost and vacuous pedantry. Honestly, it is. And I'm speaking to my brethren here. All right, let's see if I had anything else here. I don't think I do. I think that pretty much covered the points that I wanted to. I'm going to drink some more beer. I'm going to see if I'm going to go look through some of these comments and interact with some of the ironic comments, and we'll see where we go. But remember, my point here wasn't to argue for my position on open borders. My job today, I didn't think, was to convince you to agree with me on my stance on open borders. I had one narrow purpose here, and I believe I've achieved it. And that is to say that it's inaccurate, unkind, uncharitable, and just not the way to be a decent person to call somebody who happens to believe that it's just impossible right now a bordertarian. That was my very narrow goal here, and I think I've achieved it. So I see a lot of comments are wanting to argue the open borders thing, and that's cool. Maybe I'll engage some of them. Just know that really wasn't my purpose here. My purpose wasn't to convince you to my position on borders. My purpose was to convince you about my position on name-calling other libertarians bordertarians. So, let's go up to the top here. And I still want to know what that Republican ad was. Oh yeah, and Jason, don't let me forget that I need to do that "you had me at FBI" thing. All right. I'm going to drink some more beer as I'm... So, Offernave says, how does Angela compare to first-term Sarwark? Angela already has exceeded, to me, the metrics, all of the metrics that I think are truly, truly important. But I don't think you can compare terms until the terms are over. And that's a real... My internal bias and liking, of course, is going to say worlds apart. But again, this whole show is about being fair. Sarwark first term, I was a brand new LNC member. So if we were to compare where I'm at right now in Angela's term, which is, what, 3 months in, to 3 months into Sarwark's first term when I didn't even know how to make a motion, I can't really do that. But let me tell you the things that I hold to be really important that Angela is blowing out of the water. Angela, even when she doesn't agree with someone, be they a member of the public or be they a fellow LNC member, she bends over backwards to make sure everyone feels heard. Now, technically, a chair doesn't have to do that. Technically, someone calls the question, even if you have, 10 other people in line, you just stone-face go through it. Now, Angela doesn't say, I'm not going to allow, you can't call the... She doesn't do that. But she does, in a very gentle leadership way, impress upon the LNC, do you really want to silence people? Isn't it better to let everyone be heard? And I value that. But what she does that no other chair, in my experience on the LNC, and I'm talking about my personal experience, which is from 2016, she actually has officers. Nick never had officers. On paper he did. On the bylaws he did. But in practice, no. He didn't have officers. It was the strong chair model run amok. For my very limited time with Whitney, she didn't have officers. And for the time with Joe Bishop Henchman, he didn't have officers. Angela involves her officers. Angela does not treat this job like she's the queen bee. She is a really, really good leader. And I've seen her navigate some behind the scenes, very ticklish situations. I know y'all are going to be just like, get a room already, right? If I just keep singing her praises. But you know, I don't say nice things unless I actually have nice things to say. So I am over the moon with how Angela is doing. Okay, continuing. H. Reardon says there's no such thing as open borders. There is when there's a state. Now, if we ever achieved anarchy, you are correct. It would just be private property. But as long as there is such a concept as public property, there is. So I'm using that terminology in the world we have now, though technically you are correct, and in Kapistan, you are correct. And like bonus points to Dave Davis for noticing my running thing there. Let's see here. I'm really just scrolling down. So if it isn't a sloth, what is it? Let's make this big again. Hold on.
That's what she said.
Okay. I have no idea what it is. Look at the face. You'll never be able to read Andy Craig again. Okay, let's continue. Justin, your thing here, and I would put it on screen, but I forgot to change the background thing. Let's see how that looks. I need to change the background color. Yeah, see how dark that is? That doesn't work. I need to change that background color. You said, I think the Swedes got it right, the right to roam. They basically have a constitutional right that protects a permanent right to cross private property. They just can't damage it or harass it. I agree up to a point. You want to know who I think had a really good take on that was Roderick Long, which is, and it solves the quote-unquote donut problem, which I don't think is a real problem, by the way. I do think there is a right of ingress and egress to other property. But when you say a permanent right to cross private property makes it sound like anywhere they want, I do think the property owner can designate an area. I should do a show on that. I had done quite a bit of thought on that with the donut problem. Okay, I'm continuing here. Thank you so much, Tilt247, for the super chat. I super appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't see that till now. I was scrolling through the comments. And yeah, fangirl. I know I fangirl over Angela really bad. And Tyler says, playing devil's advocate, using no particular orderism, why not be opposed to and challenge private property rather than? The very fact that you said the word rather than shows me you don't understand no particular orderism. There's no rather than in no particular orderism. I oppose it all. So show me what we can do now. Show me what the topic of conversation is now, and that's the direction I'll take, not any particular order. The minute you say rather than, you are imposing an order. It shows me you haven't really gotten yet what I was saying, and that's okay. But the minute you put a hierarchy of order, why don't you do this rather than that, that is exactly the opposite of no particular orderism. Yeah, Justin O'Donnell, I think that is aggression. I think a real life donut problem is aggression. All right, I went through all of the comments that I wish to. This grapefruit beer is good, though I can't possibly pronounce this. Schwaffelhaver. Oh well. So I hope I at least gave you some food for thought, even if you don't agree with me. I didn't really see, when you say placing an order, no, I'm not. With the world we have right now, the borders should be open because there is public property. I'm not dealing with private property. Private property I already have a position on. So, no, I just don't think you understand the concept. And that's okay. There are plenty of people in the Radical Caucus, such as Mark Montoni, who could probably explain it a lot better than me. But the topic of this, I did a whole show on no particular orderism where I got into a whole detail. But no, my topic, my order when it comes to private property is exactly what it is. When I talk about open borders, I am saying the government can't tell private property owners who they have to let on their property or who they can't let on their property. And when it comes to public property, you can't close off freedom of movement. All right, I'm giving it quite a few other moments here while I finish this beer. And I'm trying to think of, oh no, tomorrow there's a shit ton of meetings. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream tomorrow. I have a Historical Preservation Committee meeting tomorrow, and then potentially a Libertarian Party of Colorado convention committee meeting tomorrow. But if I can, I will. You guys know that I do try to do that. All right, everyone, I am going to get going now. Remember, along the bottom there, patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. And Tyler, I thank you so much for your Twitch support and for everyone else who has chosen to support me there. I do think I'm actually going to write up this particular issue because it is pretty important to me that we're accurate in our name calling. And I might start a Substack. I might start a Substack for writing type things. Just haven't gotten there yet. Been super busy. All right, everyone, I hope you have an awesome night, and I really thank you for like the tremendous amount of engagement. And let me find my little button here. That sounded...
That's what she said.
All right, everyone, have an awesome night, and thank you, Justin. All right, bye-bye.
gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business.